Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another CIBSE Certification webinar. Today, we're very happy to have Noah Lance and Alex Blohm with us, and they will be presenting Arcsite, a tool that can assist assessors with data preparation for input into EPC software. Before I pass the microphone to Noah and Alex, and for those of you who haven't attended one of our webinars in the past, can I just say that you can post your questions in the interface of the webinar. I will try to assist Noah and Alex with the questions when we reach the Q&A section of the presentation. So without further ado, I will pass the microphone to Noah and Alex for the presentation. Thank you for attending.
Okay, thank you, Pavlo. Right. So I'm starting up my webcam, and you guys should be able to see me. And can you folks currently see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Yes, we can.
Well, my name is Noah Lance. I'm one of Arcsite's account executives. I'm joined here by Alex Blohm. He is another account executive here at our software company. Today, we're going to talk to you about Arcsite, how you can save time on site with our investigation software. A little bit about Arcs. So a couple of notes before we kind of move in. First off, we're going to be sending this recording out in an email, so you should be getting that. So if you know anyone that would like to take a look at this, be sure to forward that along with them. We'll also be linking to our landing page. So if you want to learn more about Arcsite yourself, be sure to visit that landing page. We're going to have some helpful content on there, as well as a link where you can actually book a software demo with either Alex or I, so we can show you a bit more and maybe talk about how we can integrate this software solution into your company. So give you an overview of what this presentation is going to entail. First off, we're going to talk a bit about what Arcsite is, obviously, to kind of introduce this and the need for a solution like this. Then we're going to segue into how we can improve your workflow by using this application. Then we're going to talk a bit about Mark Walton's experience with Arcsite. For those of you who don't know Mark, he's a CIBSE member, and he is a low carbon consultant and level 5 energy assessor. Then, of course, we're going to show you the tool. And if you have any questions about what you're seeing here today, be sure to put them in the chat, just like Pavlov mentioned. We'll answer those at the end. So just write them down, and we'll address those towards the end of the demonstration today. All right. So first off, before we discuss what the new solution might look like, we need to talk about the old way of doing site inspections. And I used to be a site inspector myself. Typically, what my workflow involved was walking around homes or buildings and drawing things up on pen and paper. In the United States, we call those chicken scratch drawings. And then you would take those drawings, and then from that type of visual information, you might copy it into another software program, make a more professional copy to actually deliver it to the client or for internal use. And it just caused a lot of issues. The biggest one is that pen and paper drawings create wasted time managing reports and drawings. So, what we found with a lot of companies is the initial drawing created on site, it tends to be a little crude and not necessarily usable. And so there is a need to either copy the drawing more professionally onto another piece of paper or report, or even, push it into a software. So you're doing the same drawing twice, and that creates redundancy and just management issues. It also creates issues with the quality of drawings across inspectors. So for instance, if you have 2 or 3 different people going out and doing drawings on different sites, they may use different symbols. They may not have the same level of eye-hand coordination across inspectors. Sometimes notes aren't legible, for instance, and that can create issues when it comes time to install or act on those drawings. This all, of course, leads simply to inconsistent reporting and degraded communication quality. So, what was needed was some way to kind of not necessarily change the way people work, but optimize the way they work. So, simply by going around a site once and drawing just like they were before, they were creating accurate, legible, clear sets of data. And that's kind of where Arcsite stepped in. In 2015, we envisioned a unique way to streamline workflows by enabling in-field personnel to create professional quality digital drawings and reports simply through drawing a picture. So people are already, going out into the field with pen and paper, drawing reports, drawing floor plans, and then they're creating these documents, sometimes by using that data. So how can we kind of marry the drawing aspect with the reporting aspect? And that's kind of what Arcsight, set out to do. We created a very easy to use mobile application that enables anybody to create professional CAD designs. And we also make that process pen and paper easy to use from your mobile device. What this new approach allows you to do is consolidate your workflow, eliminate redundancy, and actually enables you to actively collaborate and communicate with your peers simply by pressing a button on a mobile app. Here's the Arcsight way. So first off, using our simple to use CAD design software, everybody here in this webinar can actually now create professional CAD drawings. So, typically CAD software is associated with being kind of complicated, a little bit of a learning curve associated with it. Arcsight is truly pen and paper easy to work with. You just kind of draw with your finger or stylus on a tablet, and Arcsight really does the rest of the work for you. That may sound a little hard to believe, but when you see Alex kind of demo the tool, you're going to be able to see it firsthand here later in the presentation. We also wanted to make sure that this platform was customizable for everybody's needs. So Arcsight actually enables you to actively share custom shapes you create and custom drawing tools, and you can share those within your company so everybody is using the same set of symbols. We also wanted to make sure that, in addition to creating these reports, you can also really easily create drawings. You can also really easily create reports. So we wanted to make sure to have that reporting aspect included in the tool. And we also wanted to make sure that information was stored and organized somewhere. So we include cloud backup in the design of the tool. A couple other things you can do here with the software that are really useful. So first off, Arcsight has a very cool takeoff functionality. So if you're ever drawing symbols on pieces of paper or into a computer program and then manually adding those up for some type of reporting, Arcsight can actually do that tallying for you and create a takeoff material or report, again, just through that drawing aspect. So it takes care of all the manual calculations for you. Arcsight also enables you to collaborate with your peers. So for instance, once you've finished a floor plan or report, you can actually share that internally or even externally just by pushing a button in our software. We also recognize that photos were a very important part of most site inspectors' workflows. So oftentimes people will do a drawing on pen and paper, they'll take photos on their phone or something, and then they'll need to organize all this in like some type of third-party solution by emailing them or sharing them manually. It's just a huge hassle. So we recognize that being able to basically encapsulate all these different types of information in one application would be really important. So we've included ways to organize photos, embed, mark them up in your floor plans, just so you can better communicate with your team and clients. All right. So at this point, now I'm going to hand it off to Alex, and he's going to talk a bit about how Mark Walton uses our tool.
Perfect. Thanks, Noah. As Noah mentioned, I'm Alex Blohm. I'm one of Arcsight's account executives. I've been working with a gentleman named Mark Walton. Oh, Noah, if you could go back to that real quick. I've been working with a gentleman named Mark Walton for the past few months. As he mentioned earlier, Mark is a CIBSE member. He is a low carbon consultant and a level 5 energy assessor. I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of his process and why he uses Arcsight, and then ultimately lead to a demonstration of a lighting audit conducted using Arcsight. A few of the high-level things that he wanted me to touch on of why he uses Arcsight would be, improving accuracy, having flexibility while you're out on site to correct errors, make adjustments, and just, be flexible by using a tool that's not necessarily pen and paper. The unlimited scale and size. So if Mark's working on a building inspection that is a massive distribution center or a small retail building, there's no limitation that comes with, pen and paper drawings that he used to previously have. We have a few different tools that are available as far as like the lines and the walls. So based on the floor plan that he was working on, there was a lot of different, customizations that you could do to make it a little bit more personalized for each individual location. The next two are the created shapes and products that kind of make Arcsight very useful for him. So for him, the shapes were, text inputs That way he didn't have to spend time and really maximize the time that he's spending on site by collecting that data. Products were, essentially visual components that you can add that would collect data. So when he's able to do these detailed lighting and HVAC surveys, it would essentially pull together all that data, so that way he can have that for his, audits that he'll be creating later on. Through Arcsite, you can export it out as a DXF or a DWG file. So if you are using a 3D rendering tool afterwards, such as Mark, it really drastically reduces the amount of time that you'd be spending on that. All the data that is collected through Arcsite would be making it a lot easier for you to conduct that audit that you would have to, ultimately do based on the data that you're collecting. Mark likes to say that we're an excellent value. We might be a little bit biased, but based on the time that he's saving in the field and the value of using Arcsite, he likes to really hammer that home. Short learning curve and excellent support. I've been working with Mark for a couple months now, and he's been a Arcsite user for a couple of years now, and he's a very knowledgeable guy in the industry. So he's been the learning curve for him was very short. He's tried a handful of different other survey tools. Arcsite was by far the most customizable option that he could find, just to make it a little bit more personalized for his workflow. And that's what we work with our customers on, to just make sure that all the data and input that you have is customized for your workflow. So if no, we can skip to the next slide. Mark sent over a few different photos, as you can see here, of just his general workflow. So when Mark goes out, he's not lugging around a handful of different tools anymore. The only thing that he's bringing out is his iPad and his laser measure. So the photo that's directly adjacent to it and below it is the building that he was conducting this audit for. So the two little drawings that you see are actual inputs from Arcsite. When he takes that data, he then exports it out to the DXF file and through the 3D rendering tool, and ultimately leading him to that 3D rendering in the bottom corner. And then the next slide, if Noah, you can skip to it, it kind of walks you through that process. So when he goes out on site, he goes out and uses Arcsite in the building, uses it in the ISVE software. DXF imports it into his 3D modeling tool, and then ultimately leads to that performance assessment rating that he is collecting based on the data that he collected within Arcsite. And then we can skip to the next slide, Noah. Now I'm going to get into a brief demonstration of Arcsite, so kind of walking you through what that process would look like as far as a lighting audit or assessment for a, let's say, a grocery store or a shopper's market. While I'm doing that, there is also that link that Noah mentioned here that we'll be sending out afterwards as well. If you guys are interested, based on some of the things that you've seen, just to kind of get a free month of Arcsite or learn a little bit more, talk to someone on the team, we're happy to do that and walk you through that process. Now, Lucy, if you could, let me do that. I will screen share right now. Hopefully you guys can see my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen, Alex.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So this is the Arcsite digital canvas. So as Mark goes out on site, all he's bringing with him, as I mentioned, is his iPad and his laser measure. So essentially what you'll do within Arcsite is draw, the initial floor plan and then start collecting data. So for him, we'll just draw the line, and then you can actually, with his laser measure, tap on the input here, and I can say, hey, this is a 65-foot wall. For you guys, we do have different inputs. You can go in here, switch it to units and precision. We'll switch to meters, whatever you might need. Then you can just quickly, finish out sketching that wall. Arcsite has a lot of different tools associated with it that make it very easy to use while you're in the field and kind of walk around. So we'll kind of sketch out what this might look like. It doesn't have to be perfect because there are a lot of tools that we have, as I mentioned. So you can see, as you might be walking around, it doesn't always have to be perfect. I'll show you what it looks like as far as the different tools that you can add in just a second, but we'll get the rough foundation of that, building drawn out. And then once we get to this point, you see there's a few different areas that I kind of missed. What you can do based on what we have is we have a couple tools such as the extend tool, just to make it a little bit easier to snap into place. For this one, we'll zoom in a little bit. We'll get really close as possibly we can, trim that right off, and then we're good to go. Arcsite has a lot of different shapes doors, openings, windows that you can add. We've got about 1,200 different shapes and openings. So if we go in, we're going to just quickly size these into each individual location. So since this is a shopping center, we'll just add some entryways, some points of ways to get in the building. You can change the orientation of which way it's going to be opening. That way you know where you'd be going within the site. So we'll quickly finish that up. Add that one more. And as I mentioned, we do have a handful of different shapes that you can add. But for Mark's workflow, a lot of the stuff that he was putting in were custom shapes that he developed. So, for this example, since we're doing a shopping center, I'll show you what it would look like to, add a couple of checkout lanes. So I'm just using some of the tools that we have to duplicate, some of the different things within the canvas. So maybe this is a seasonal display for this shopping center that's in this specific region. Maybe there's a couple display bars over here. We'll just duplicate these. I'll select 2 of these. So we'll box select that one as well. We'll just duplicate these as necessary, just to really, hammer home the fact is when you're out on site, we have a lot of different tools available to make sure that the time that you're spending is really maximized with the information and the details that you'd like to do. So once you have this, you can also add, text inputs. So we'll say maybe we want to zoom in a little bit. Maybe this is a bathroom. We won't, mark out every room for the sake of time here, but we'll zoom in a little bit. We'll specify that. Once we have this drawn out, this would be the step in the process where we're going to get to the data collection step. So as Noah hinted on in the earlier part of the presentation, we have our location-based photo tool right here that allows you to tap on an internal point in the document. You can take a photo directly from the iPad, or, since I'm not in a shopping center right now, I'm just going to go in here and I'll select one of the photos here and we'll attach it to the canvas. You can actually mark it up, so that way when you're going back to the office and you're creating that 3D rendering or putting together your site inspection, you remember, hey, maybe we're going to circle this area right here. We're going to make a call out and say replace floor drain for whatever reason. And then that way, when you reference this later on, you remember, hey, okay, I was doing this and this is why I was doing that, the floor drain that we're replacing. And it just kind of hammers home for the collaboration aspect of things. Of someone that might not have been on site, you can see everything that you might have been seeing with, as if you did go to this job site. So everything would be saved directly to there. And if you can see, I can move this around to show where I was standing when I took that photo. There's no limit to the amount of photos that you can add, so we'll add one more. We don't need to mark it up, but you can take the photo directly from there, as I mentioned, or just simply tap on an existing photo. We'll add it, and then we'll save it directly to there. The biggest thing that Mark found value in was the data collection. So we work with our customers to incorporate the data collection in forms of products. So for example, if we're installing a ceiling fan in this specific room over here, it's not just a ceiling fan. We're going to be collecting a lot of data associated with it. So if I click on this attribute section, there's a lot of questions that we can get answered. So for example, the fixture location, maybe this is a break room. And then the mounting height, we'll say it's 12 feet, so on and so forth. We'll answer some of these questions and quickly run through them, but we would work with you and work with our customers to make sure we're getting all the questions that are relevant to your business and your workflow, while you're on site. So maybe it is important that you're getting all these questions answered. Maybe it's not. You don't need to answer all these, but we can make it so that, maybe it's very relevant to note, the control type for each individual location or each individual product. Once you have that data collected, it's saved directly to there. But say we're going to be, installing multiple, or we need to have the same data collected for each individual thing. So I'm going to duplicate this one and put it into a different room, and it's going to bring over that data that we already filled out so that you're not wasting time on that. But if I jump over to take off an estimate now, it populated that we have 2. But if I jump in here now, I can view product detail and I can look at sequence number 2 and then edit that data. So if I said, hey, this is actually going into a storage room this time, but it's going to be installed, or it's, it's all relevant information, but this is going to be changed to a storage room, or it's 15 feet, everything else is the same. That way now, when you're exporting this out, all of this information is saved directly to your Arcsite account. So when you're creating your energy assessment or your bill of materials or whatever you might be needing, all of that data is collected. What I can do now is add a few more things. So maybe we're going to add some exit signs. So this could be super beneficial if you're working on a massive, industrial building. It will essentially collect how many different exit signs would be in that building. You can answer the same or similar questions to what we were answering previously, but we won't bore you with that examples right now. And then we'll add a couple more things, and then I'll show you one more thing before we jump over to the output within Arcsite. The last thing that I would add to this existing drawing, maybe in the main floor, we're going to be installing these pole head lights. So we'll kind of put that in that corner, but we know that each one is, say, 10 feet apart. So I'm going to go to my array tool. With the array tool selected, I'm going to select that, and I say, hey, actually, maybe these are 11 foot apart, and this is actually, let's say this is 11 foot apart as well. So I can simply just drag my finger up and down to see where they would be spaced out. We'll change this back to 12 so that way it reaches the end of that. We'll save it right here. And now those are inputted in. I'll delete that one. And then one of the other things that I can do is with these two selected, I can just kind of duplicate those right over there. And we can get those same questions answered if you'd like for those specific ones. Or I can go into takeoff data and say, based on that area, we have 13 of these pole head lights. We'll go into view product detail. Instead of inputting each individual questions, we can go to bulk editing. So we'll go to bulk editing. We'll answer a few of these. So maybe this is the main floor. Oops, main floor. And each one of these mounting heights are 15 feet. And we'll save that directly to there. So once we're to this step, we've got a lot of the data that we're looking to collect so that we can conduct our energy assessment. Maybe it's the efficiency rating, whatever it might be. We're going to go to takeoff and estimate. I'm going to export this out as a takeoff report. So ultimately, up to this point, everything that I've done can be done offline. This would be the one step that you would need an internet connection for, but you do not need to do it while you're on site. But I'll give you a good understanding of what that looks like. So I'll hit export. What it's going to do is it's going to simultaneously send to our cloud site. That way, as Noah mentioned earlier, for collaboration, if you're out on site and you have someone back at your office that would like to take a look at the data that you're collecting, you upload this to our user site. Whoever it might be can take that data, look at it, analyze it, and see, the different, lighting fixtures that would be installed in this location. So based on the input, we have all these questions automatically answered. For Mark, all of this is very helpful for him. These aren't all the questions that Mark, specifically answers. These are just the generic account. We don't want to share, proprietary customer information, but this is, just a quick example of what can be done. While you're on site, if you did want to, you can email this out directly from Arcsite. This takeoff report would be sent out as a CSV file, and then you can do whatever you might want to do with it from here. Before I jump out of the demonstration, the last thing that I would want to touch on would be you can work from existing PDFs. So Mark mentioned not every time, he's fortunate enough to be graced with a PDF to work from, but you can, get a PDF from someone. Use the calibration tool, and as long as you know one input here, if I drag this in and I say, hey, this is actually 35 feet, we'll save that directly to there. Everything that I draw on top here will be to scale. So for example, if we're doing something similar to what we were doing before with the array tool, if I drop one in there, and this is a massive building now, we go into the array and we know that they're all 11 feet apart, and we can just drag our finger along. And then now I say, okay, that's all I need to know. But if I go into takeoff and estimate, it's going to automatically calculate how many total, lighting fixtures that we would need for that specific area. And we can answer all the questions that would be associated with that one specifically. Up until this point, that's pretty much going to conclude the product demonstration of Arcsite. So I will pass the presentation back over to Lucy. If you guys have any questions, we're happy to get into those. Feel free to reach out to us on our website as well. We're available. There's a little chat window that you can reach out to us and ask any questions anytime.
Right. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Noah. That was very helpful and very interesting. Currently, we have a question from Elizabeth Ward, which I believe you have already touched on. It's the cases where an assessor may have a CAD or a PDF drawing, and whether this can be imported into the software, and the assessor can continue with data collection and the photographs attachment to the plans. I think, well, from what you just mentioned, that is a function that is available in the software. Am I correct?
That's correct. So you can do it a couple of different ways. So from our user site, you can upload existing plans or PDFs. All you need to do is need to have one specific measurement. You can calibrate it, and then everything that you draw on top of there will be to scale.
Be to scale, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Does the app only work on iPad, or does it work on other, I'm guessing, Windows or Google tablets, etc.?
Right. So currently, right now, we are only available on iOS devices, so your iPads or your iPhones. We did start development on the Android and Microsoft Surface tablets. I believe it was about 3 months ago now. We do have a timeline associated with that, but we're looking to have our first release by the end of 2021.
Right. Okay. I'm just having a look through to see if there's any other questions. As you guys mentioned, all of the attendees will be getting an email with a link to the presentation, the recording, and the presentation. The details will also be available on our website, probably from tomorrow. Just gonna give it a few more seconds to see if there is any other questions from the audience. Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
The only other thing that's worth noting that I think we touched on is the fact is every single one of the products that we have included. So Mark's workflow is slightly different than what we showed, but we can do and customize just about anything to however you guys are doing things. What data that you'd like to collect out in the field, that can be done within Arcsight very simply.
Yeah, that was probably the thing that I had in mind personally. It looks like the software has lots of possibilities. You can collect data for all sorts of different things, not just EPCs, effectively, from what I've seen. So yeah, the fact that you can actually add specific questions that are to relate to a specific process, I think that looks great to me as an EPC assessor talking. There is a question around costs, whether it's a monthly subscription, etc. I'm not sure if that's something you want to cover when people contact you, or
yeah, yeah, definitely. We can get into it a little bit more if someone would like to reach out. All of our pricing is listed on our website directly, so it's arcsiteapp.com. We do have different, packages and pricing options based on, what you're seeing and what your workflow might be. So we'd love to have the conversation with you. The pricing on our website can be a little bit customized and tailored to however you guys are looking to do things. Obviously, everyone's workflow is slightly different. So yeah, we'd love to have that conversation.
Lovely. Is there any administrative function for centralization of data sharing? So I can only imagine that's data being collected by different people. I'm assuming from the same company that can be shared between the members of that company.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways that can work. So that data is stored natively on your iPad, but can also be uploaded to the administrative site. And then it's stored in one place. And that can be, viewed from the office. So you can have 10, 20 people out in the field all collecting data. As they upload it to the cloud, that's going to be immediately visible from the user site. So I can be sitting on my computer, take a look at my assessors or inspectors' reports, drawings, photos as they come in.
That makes a lot of sense. A different question: can the software link, import, or export to a Revit file? I'm assuming that's one of the Beam software packages available in the UK.
You can export. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so as long as it can be exported or imported as a DWG or DXF file, from my experience within Revit, that is a possibility. So the drawings that you create within Arcsite, obviously we did a small little shopping center. If you'd like to have a massive distribution center, you can export that out as a DWG or DXF file, and then when you import it into something like Revit, create that 3D rendering from there.
Right, that makes sense. Another question, I'm not sure if it's picks up from a previous one regarding staff management and invoicing. I'm assuming you have different options that could be on a person by person or a company-wide sort of approach. I'm assuming that's what Jeff is meaning. I mean, with his question.
Yeah,
it would depend on what you mean by staff management. I can take this one, Alex, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So from the administrative side, you can add or remove users whenever you need to, and you can also give them different levels of access to Arcsite. So for instance, if they need to be able to just mark up drawings, you can just give them that permission, but they can't delete anything, for instance, or they can create and share stuff, really from scratch. So it's up to you what level of access people have. As far as invoicing goes, we do integrate in with a software called QuickBooks Online. So that's an accounting software that's often used for invoicing. So we're definitely happy to help you. You may need a specific solution just for that, but we'll definitely work with you on that specific issue.
Slightly different question from what I see. Is the data held by Arcsite or the customer servers, or can it be downloadable to be held to the customer servers? What's the arrangement there?
Yeah.
So all the data is I'll take this one again, Alex. Sorry. All the data is stored on Amazon's web servers, but we do want to emphasize that's all your data. So all the PDFs, PNGs, DXFs, DWGs, the reports, that's all your information, and you can download it or export it out of Arcsite at any time. Did you want to add something there, Alex?
Yeah, and then we do have Amazon Web Services stored natively in the UK, as well as Amazon Web Services in the United States as well.
Right. I think that covers it. How can photographs, site notes, etc., all the information collected, be exported to viewed by someone else? For example, if someone is an assessor with us, they will need to present those sort of information when we call them for an audit. What sort of format can the data be exported at?
Well, you can do it as an Excel sheet, PDF. You can customize different reports for different purposes too. So we have different template options. So I mean, you might have a template option for external use, like for a customer to look at, or you might have a different template output for more internal use. So the system is quite flexible in terms of what the reports can look like and how the data can be pushed out.
Lovely. Last question from our agency. How is data protection and security of data? I'm assuming they refer to how they're being stored.
Well, we're not really specialists in that particular function. However, our customer success agents, are pretty prolific in that. Amazon's web services are some of the most secure in the world.
Yeah.
But we do have different legal documents and stuff pertaining to that. So if anyone needs to take a look at that, let us know, and we can definitely send you some material.
All right. A question that sounds quite specific. It's around what sort of report is available in the software related to air source heat pump sizing, calculations, etc. Is that something you have developed? But I can only assume that if you haven't, it's something that you could develop if someone asks for that.
So the question is regarding heat maps.
And the air source heat pumps, and how can you record sizing, calculations, etc. In the software?
Oh, okay.
It's quite specific, I think, for EPC assessors, to be honest.
Sure. We might need to take a look at some examples to really fully answer that question. I mean, we're a drawing solution, but the takeoff functionalities we have included in the system, which we didn't really get into today, can involve some pretty advanced math. So we would want to take a look at that to kind of see if that's something that we could work in. But with the attribute system that we've developed, and then some of the, I mean, you can do calculus and stuff in the system just through drawing. So we would need to take a look at that just to answer the question, but I certainly would be happy to and see if it's something that's possible.
Yeah, I think anyone that has that sort of question, they should contact you. I'm sure you can work out a solution with them. From what I've seen from the examples you gave us, there are lots of things that are very similar already in the software. Right. I can't see any other questions in the chat or in the questions section. I'm not sure if there's anything else you guys want to say.
Well, we just wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to kind of show this tool to some of your members. There's a lot of very passionate people behind the development and business of this product. So it's certainly been a pleasure to kind of explore these different industries and work with people from all different corners of the world. I mean, we're from the United States. We're talking to you folks over across the pond, if you will. So it's been a great journey, and Alex and I are very excited to work with you folks.
Exactly.
Lovely. I want to thank you guys for the presentation. This was very interesting. From a EPC assessor point of view, I've been an EPC assessor for 10 years. Yes, this was really great. As I mentioned before, the presentation will be sent to everyone by email with a link to the recording. We will also have all the presentation slides on our website available. Just one thing I can say is invite you guys to speak to Noah and Alex if you're interested.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate it, you guys.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone for attending.